Hello, everyone, and welcome to our show. It's kind of candidate central here tonight, in that I've got me. Well, hey, that's a good start. I've got Mike Jones, and I also have Ron Smith. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Good evening, Dale.
Okay, so Ron Smith he purports to be running for county commissioner, and he claims
Position number 3.
He claims that he's running against Cheryl Walker. Ron, defend yourself. Are you really running against Cheryl Walker?
Well, the Secretary of State says so.
Okay.
Oh, there's a recommendation. Okay, good,
Yes.
good. All right, so the people who are running against Cheryl Walker would be Ron Smith. It would also include Mark Seligman, and that's it at this moment.
No,
Lily Morgan. Yes.
How can we forget her?
Now we've had Lily Morgan on the show.
Yeah.
We've had Mark Seligman. We've talked to him many times, and many people have seen him speaking at county commissioners meetings. We've had Cheryl Walker has been on our show many times.
Yes, she's an uninvited guest. Putting in, we can't get rid of her.
Now, Ron is invited, and one of the reasons why, Ron, is that anybody that watches this show or follows what's happening in county politics, they know what the stand of Cheryl Walker is, and they already know from watching the city council meetings generally where Lily Morgan stands, and they sure as heck know where Mark Seligman stands. But I think I'm safe in saying that there are a lot of people who aren't completely clear about who Ron Smith is. Ron, who are you?
I'm a native born Oregonian, born in Grants Pass. My family homesteaded here over 100 years ago. I am a staunch private property rights advocate.
Okay. And so, what's pushing you to run? Why would you say? I mean, what one thing is there? One thing, or what is it that you see in how government is operating here locally now that makes you want to run? And what would you do different than what they're currently doing?
Well, that's a pretty easy answer, actually. It's land use. The county is 67% federally controlled. Josephine County's 1,654 square miles. 1,108 square miles of that is federally controlled. Historically, traditionally, that's where our economy came from.
Right.
And I firmly believe that if we're going to ever have a healthy community, we're going to have to address a healthy forest.
Okay. So so what you're saying is, and many people have said, many people that are running for commissioner, many people that are currently commissioners have said, well, you know, the timber economy, that's gone forever. That's never, ever coming back. Do you dispute that?
I do not believe that at all. I believe that if we continue to manage the forest the way we are today, and listen, I said this in 2002 when I ran. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I ran for commissioner in 2002.
Yes.
And I told everybody in 2002 that if we didn't change our forest practices, the forest was going to burn up. What happened in 2003? The largest fire in the history of Oregon. 500,000 acres biscuit fire. And if you look at that land that was burnt in that biscuit fire that's controlled by the federal government, it's a wasteland. It's dead, snagged, and brush. It never got harvested. It never got replanted. That, if we'd have just taken 15 to 20% of those trees while they had value, we wouldn't be discussing public funding safety. We wouldn't be taxing the people. Do you understand why I'm running?
Yeah, well, Ron, way back in the war with Spain, William Randolph Hearst predicted that in his newspapers that there was going to be a war, and then when it didn't happen, he actually kind of started one himself in order to sell newspapers.
Are you accusing Ron of setting forest fires?
Maybe he's confessing here on our show.
I missed that last question because of the volume.
Oh, that's okay, Ron. It was not a serious question.
That was a wise move.
Yeah, that's very good. I remember Ronald Reagan used to what as he was leaving the room. I can't hear you.
At times, I think Dale's even used that at times.
So tell us, what is the main difference between you and the other candidates for this office? You can take them one at a time if you like.
I'm not going to go after any particular candidate. I'm going to talk about myself. I'm a firm believer of the prosperity of Josephine County. And if you look at the history of America, the reason our founding fathers came to this country out of Europe is because in Europe, they couldn't have private property. They didn't have a right to own land. It was only the rich elite and their barons, and everybody else was a peon. What made America rich, what made America great and the greatest nation in the world, is that right to have private property and control it for your own future and prosperity. I see private property right now today is seriously under attack, in case you guys haven't noticed it. And not only that, with 67% of the county controlled by the feds, what are we going to do for a financial future? I mean, are we really going to turn ourselves into a manufacturing center? Are we going to invite Toyota to come in and build a factory or a plant? I think the answer really is in the land. A wise man once said, all true wealth comes from the ground. And if we're going to prosper, and if we're going to move forward, and if it's just going to be a great place for my grandchildren to live, then we're going to have to manage the land. And we're going to have to manage the land for the prosperity of the county. And all we have to really do is manage it for a healthy forest. We'll never go back to the 80s in logging, and I don't really foresee that. We will have forest fires. It's the history of Southern Oregon. But the question is, what are we going to do with the trees after they burn? Are we going to do what we did after the Biscuit Fire? Let them sit there and rot and wait for the next fire, like the Buckskin Fire that started in exactly the same spot the Biscuit Fire went? I think that we've given up too quickly on 67% of our land. The federal government promised us payment in lieu of taxes. Okay, now they're reneging on that promise. So really, the answer to our dilemma here is land use.
Okay, so how do you make that happen? A lot of, some of the current seat holders there have said, well, you can't fight the federal government. We don't have the treasury to fund, a lawsuit of that nature. Take us through the process. What would it look like? How do you go about getting the federal government to allow us to have that land? Are you talking about just the use of the land? Are you talking about them giving up the ownership or rights of it? Show us the whole picture.
Honest to God, all you have to do is make them obey the laws they wrote. The ONC Act is still an ONC Act, and they're not living up to it, okay? If we harvested the amount of timber that was supposed to be harvestable off the ONC lands, we wouldn't have an economic problem in Josephine County. If we go out and take even 15 to 20% of the timber that gets burned in these annual forest fires that we seem to have, and then replant that ground, not only would we have an economy, we'd have a better watershed and a healthier forest. And then my grandchildren will be able to live here, and your grandchildren might.
Right. I understand that. But, okay, the federal government is not going to go for this. In other words, you're not going to be able to pick up your chainsaw and just, saunter out into the forest and start cutting trees without them barking. What do you do when they face you with their objection to your plan?
Do you understand what the coordination process is?
I do to some degree. I'm not a big fan, to be honest, because I think they are in complete control of the coordination process.
Well, you're talking about cooperation. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about by the law.
Right.
By law, they are supposed to coordinate with the county whenever there's an environmental impact statement. Okay.
Right.
And if they don't, they can be sued.
Right, and we're supposed to come up with a plan, and then we're supposed to coordinate with them with their plan and compromise with them. That's the problem that I have.
No, I'm not a compromiser, okay? We've compromised ourselves into the very corner that we're in right now today, okay? What we have to do is simply make them obey their laws, and if they don't make them obey the laws, take them to court. They wrote the laws. They got to live up to the law.
Okay. And so how would you do that? Would you have go after some sort of pro bono representation, or?
What do you mean by that? Please clarify.
Well, I mean, you're going to have to face them in court, so you're going to have a legal entity that does it. Is Wally going to be the guy who argues the case for the county?
Well, you know by history, if you look at this, that the BLM and Forest Service say that the logging or lumber industry, the people, they don't have standing. The county has standing because the ONC Act wasn't made between lumber companies; it was made between the counties. Okay, they have to obey their laws, and if they don't obey their laws, they're breaking the law. Now, what would the law do to you if you broke the law and they caught you? What would they do?
Yeah, they'd throw you in jail. You'll get no argument from me on this. I think that the ONC says it's basically a contract that says that they're going to split with us 50-50 the receipts, and that hasn't happened in years.
Yeah, they broke their contract. But what Mike was asking you here, Ron, is who will represent Josephine County? Do you imagine tasking Wally Hicks, the county legal counsel, to go to court and follow this
actually,
through?
I think it concerns more than Josephine County. There's several ONC counties in Western Oregon, and I think that we need to get them to join together. The rumor has it there's actually 7 counties getting ready to launch a lawsuit against the BLM on the ONC. So this is not something that can't be done. It's just a matter of if the Board of Commissioners has the backbone and the guts to do it.
Okay, let's suppose, Ron, that the Board of County Commissioners, probably Simon Hare, is listening to this program right now. We know that they do watch the program, maybe not every night, and they go, that's a really good idea. And Simon Hare says, well, I've been saying this for years, that the ONC counties, in fact, they're right now at the Association of Oregon Counties convention, and we'll be there all week. And they steal the march on your idea, and they announce once they come back, they're not going to do this, but let's suppose they did. Okay, the ONC counties have now taken the federal government to court. What happens to your candidacy?
I still believe in private property rights. Have you noticed that there's a few things happening to people's private property rights?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like is there some a specific example you wanted to cite there? Or?
Well, there's setbacks on the streams. Okay. Have you guys looked at Senator Wyden's ONC Act of 2015?
He keeps asking us the questions, Mike. Yes.
He's interviewing you here.
Yes, and we did
go
ask
to the questions, control the conversation, guys.
That's right. That's right. We're well aware of that.
Yes.
We did go to that gathering where they were talking about the wild and scenic area and etc.
Right.
Did you get a chance to go to that?
Pardon me, I didn't hear that one either.
We did go to that gathering, and we took 2 cameras with us. The one where a number of people had shown up to talk to the feds about the wild and scenic areas, the nickel mine, and etc. People were bussed in from all over the place. Did you get a chance to go to that?
Ron.
You were there.
I was there.
Now, I was there, and I stood up and spoke.
Yeah.
There were a couple of people who stood up and spoke.
What's that now?
There were a couple of people who stood up and spoke. I was one of 3.
Yeah, I understand. So what's the question?
What did you take away from that gathering, and why did you not stand up and speak?
I took away from that gathering that it was a setup. Which way was the podium situated? Which way did the podium face?
It was facing the feds.
No, it faced the audience.
Well, I know that the people who spoke all were speaking to the audience and not necessarily to the people behind the dais there. Yeah.
Well, we were there to address the federal agencies, not to address the audience. And that, to me, that meeting, they bust these people from 150 miles away. That was a total setup by Senator Wyden's office, in my opinion. Using children to promote your agenda. Did you see it, Dale? Did you see him bring the children up?
I saw that, and as I was pointing out, there were three of us that actually got up and spoke, and I was one of the people that got up and spoke. So, one of the things I did is I said thanks to the people who did get up and speak, and then I had a couple of words for the people who didn't get up and speak, which included Jack Swift, for example, who has said, we've got to stand up and tell them what we think, but he didn't do so.
This thing is already on the Federal Register. It is a temporary segregation. All right. If it's on the Federal Register, you know how it comes off?
No.
Do you know how you get something off the Federal Register?
No.
I'm not aware that you do.
2/3 of the senators to vote it off.
Yeah, that's good luck on that one.
Yeah,
right.
That's exactly right.
So, okay. Now, listen. Economic development.
Right.
You've mentioned timber. You notice that the commissioners they pull in consulting firms from all over the place to tell them how to accomplish economic development. And what would you do to foster economic development?
Well, I got a question for you. How's that been working so far?
Yeah.
Well, it hasn't really.
How's that consulting firm and all that economic development money that we've been splashing all over? How's that been working for Josephine County?
Yeah, that's a real good point. So what would you do?
Yeah, it's a complete waste of money. So what's your plan?
One thing you have to do, get government off the back of business. You have to try to cut out the bottlenecks that hinder our economic development. Try to get something through planning. Try to go to planning and promote an economic development area. We're stuck inside the urban growth boundaries as far as Grants Pass is concerned. All right. Just look at the restrictions on people's property. Are you aware of what the EPA is trying to do with water, which is a huge issue for us here in Josephine County, is water.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So those kind of things, we have to push back. And it takes a strong board of commissioners that's willing to stand up and push back. Did you guys go to the roads meeting that the commissioners had about roads in the county?
Well, I was at the one that was in the little back room where they were talking with the BLM and the Forest Service.
Well, it was only the Forest Service showed up. The BLM decided not to show.
Two different meetings. They have met with the BLM, and they have met a couple of times with the Forest Service about the roads, yes.
What did the commissioners do during that Forest Service meeting?
Well, again, you're asking us the questions, but one of the
I feel like I'm on a gridiron here.
They didn't do anything. They sat there and listened to them tell them how it was.
Right.
Did you know there's an ORS that says that every road in the county, if it's not an interstate or a state highway, is county road? It's a county road.
Yeah, you know what? Unfortunately, I believe that the default of our current commissioners is to defer to federal authority, and that's kind of what they do.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake. I understand the problem with that, but you got to stand up for the rights of the people. I mean, Josephine County, they promised us that they were going to pay us in lieu of taxes. 53% of the state is federally controlled, 67% in the county.
Yeah.
We have less than 27% as a tax base, and not all of that's taxable. So do you really think that we're going to survive without paying attention to the 67% of the land base of the county?
Well, I don't know, Ron. What about marijuana, you know?
I'd rather see him. I think there's more of a future for him, myself. But if we're going to grow hemp here, let's manufacture a product here instead of, just growing hemp and send it to someplace else.
Yeah,
we could do that. Marijuana's been here a long time, guys. Been here for 25 years in the black market. How does putting the state in control of that bring economic development to Josephine County?
Well, here's another question based on the same path that we've been going down here. So you get in as commissioner and you start a very vigorous program. It's not going to happen immediately, obviously. A very vigorous program that's showing some success in getting the federal government to live up to its contract, which we've been saying on this show for quite a while now.
Yeah.
And so in the meantime, we do have to live and eat and work and play and etc. So what would you do? What other types of things would you do while you're waiting for the results of the court case?
Well, Dale, I think it's still right back to trying to stop the bottlenecks from economic development. You remember what Home Depot had to go through to get their business in town?
Mm.
Oh my goodness, they cost those guys a fortune. I'm surprised they went ahead and did it.
Yeah.
I don't know what Winco had to go through because the county commissioners really have very little say-so about what happens inside Grants Pass, guys.
That's right.
Yes, they do. They have very, very little to say about that. That's county government. And unfortunately, that's where 90% of our economy comes from today. Okay, that's not always the way it was. Before, we actually made a living from the land. And if you look at all rural communities across the nation, they have produced the raw materials, the raw resources that made America great. Do you think there's any reason why we're having economic problems in the country itself? $140 trillion worth of minerals on the western lands from Colorado West on federal lands. Our national debt's $14 trillion, which is bigger.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well,
No,
one of the things you mentioned, one of the things you mentioned earlier, Ron, was that you felt that you were talking about Europe and about control and that kind of stuff. You have, I believe, it's a different outlook on the money system, on banking, international banking, national banking, that reaches all the way down to the local level, of course, because we have national banks here and branches of them, etc. You have some very strong feelings about the international and national banking system, which are not enunciated by other candidates. Tell us a little bit about how the international banking system and the national banking system actually reaches down to the local level. What's the matter with control of the money worldwide?
Well, there's a lot of problems there, but I think that's outside the privy of a county commissioner, isn't it?
Right, but you do have strong feelings about how that affects us locally, correct?
Well, it affects everybody locally. I mean, it affects everybody. Look at the inflation. What's the buying power of a dollar today? I think somebody said it's 3 cents compared to a $1933. So inflation does affect us all. But I don't know what a county commissioner is going to do about that.
Well,
really,
Go ahead, do you
Dale.
feel that our strings are being pulled by people in other countries and other areas of the country, of our country?
Well, undoubtedly, especially from Washington, D.C. I mean, the bureaucrats in D.C. and these different federal agencies make a lot of decisions that affect us. The people of Salem make a lot of decisions that affect us. Unfortunately, I have a different belief. 1856, that's when Josephine County was founded. 1859 is when the state became a state. 1906 is when the Department of Agriculture was created. Who has grandfather jurisdiction?
Oh, well, yeah, that's one would hope that people are looking at it that way. Unfortunately, it's been, we haven't really.
I understand. I know that's a little idyllic of a belief system, but.
And listen, I'm one who's on board with that. Now, let me ask you. I realize that probably the best way to foster economic growth is to try to remove barriers from people to do business. Although, as you pointed out, if somebody's going to come in and build an operation in the city, the county has very little to say about it. Okay, so that's some things that they can't do about economic development. And then whatever permitting or whatever it is under the county's purview, there's very little that they can deal with there. Many of the things that are hindering business are outside controls that are laid upon business. So,
exactly right.
So, what is it that you would do here locally to foster economic development.
Yeah, you're not
I would
running
hope
for
the
city
answer to-
council, of course.
What was that?
You're
Dale?
not running for city council, of course, and so you've got some
no,
countywide ideas.
I'm not. I'm running for county commissioner, just like
Right.
you, Dale.
Right.
I would probably decide to try to streamline the process for permitting. That seems to be a big bottleneck for economic development, even to the point of discouraging people from trying to develop anything. Private property is private property. If I want to develop something over private property, then I think the government should do everything they can to help us get that done, as long as we're meeting guidelines. Do you understand? We have Senate Bill 100 and LCDC that just hamstrings Oregon. Did you guys see the new thing they're going to do? Tax by mile on their cars?
Yeah,
Yes,
we
I've seen
talked
that,
with
yes.
Thurman Bedsugar about that.
Yeah. It's all about carbon taxes. It's all about, you're going to buy your carbon taxes. Well, what happens to the forest when it burns up?
Well, that's a lot of carbon. Who pays
That's
the
a
tax
whole
on
lot
that
of
one?
carbon, a whole lot of carbon sink that's no longer available, and a lot of air pollution and destroying of our watersheds. There's a county emergency today. Did you know that? It's called our forest health. I have a friend that worked for the Forest Service for 35 years. He's an engineer. He built roads, but he fought forest fires mostly. He fought almost every major fire around here. We were having a conversation the other day. He told me we're in 10 times worse shape forest-wise than we were when the Biscuit Fire happened. We're preserving this ground to the point of we're going to protect all these trees and all these animals, right? You know why? So we can watch them burn. I don't think that's going to help our county any. And I really don't think it's going to help the trees or the habitat for the wildlife. I think there was a lot of roasted spotted owls in the Biscuit Fire. So I mean, let's get real about managing our forest. I strongly believe that we're not going to have a healthy community until we have a healthy forest. I really believe that. I mean, that's the key in my book. Is it's land. It's the same reason my family came here 100 years ago. They knew they could make a living off the land. Why do people come to Josephine County? They come here for a better quality of life.
Yeah, I'd say that's true.
And how is watching the forest burn a better quality of life? I mean, there's a small group of extremists that are highly funded, that have hamstrung our historic and traditional business. The lumber's in all high demand. Worldwide, lumber is at highest demand ever, but we're not producing it.
So
why is that?
Do you think that there's anything that can be done? Would you have an action plan of what to do about the small number of extremists that you just described?
Well, an action plan, I think just talking about them and it's like anything. It's sort of like what you and Mike do, Dale. You shine the light on it, right? You shine the light on politics and on people in government. I think we need to shine a little bit more light on these guys because they're highly funded. They're not from here. They come here. They don't like mining. They don't like logging. So why would they come here? If they don't like logging and they don't like mining, they don't like timber, they don't like producing natural resources, why would anybody move to Josephine County?
Well, and as you mentioned, those people, they haven't moved to Josephine County. They probably live in the San Francisco Bay Area or something like that. And listen, I'm on board with you. I think in cases where they bus people into political events like the one that took place downtown a couple of months ago about mineral withdrawal, then you need to counter-organize that sort of thing and show up in mass. If back during the 90s when they had a lot of these people coming in here and protesting, if they had counter-protesting that outnumbered them, those people would have whimpered away with their tail between their legs. But our side of things did not organize, and now they're paying the price.
Okay, let's do a little history lesson here.
Okay.
2000, the year 2000, last year President Clinton. Dale, were you here then in 2000?
Yes, sir. I just arrived.
Okay. Mike, I know Mike didn't get here in the year 2000.
No, I didn't get here until 2003.
Got here 2004, Mike? Was that it?
2003.
Okay. 2000, the last year of President Clinton, he was going on a rampage of declaring and proclaiming national monuments. The Siskiyou National Forest is 1.2 million acres. Did you know that was up for a proclamation to become a national monument?
Yeah.
Did you know that, Dale?
Yes.
Okay. who I'm having a hard time hearing. Maybe it's that selective hearing sometimes. But guess what we did, Mike? We pushed back. We organized people for the USA. I was very concerned about it because I knew what was going to happen. I seen the handwriting on the wall. If they'd have proclaimed, see, that's an abuse of the 1906 Antiquities Act, where you proclaim Mount Rushmore or Devil's Tower a national monument. Okay, it's not made to land grab 1.2 million acres national forest. Go look at Escalante Grand Staircase Monument in Utah. It's over 3 million acres. Did you know they're closing their schools because they don't have any enrollment? They're dying. Now that's exactly what would have happened to Josephine County if we'd have set back and hadn't organized and fought that Siskiyou Rivers Monument. And we did. We stopped.
I rest my case.
I believe we stopped.
I rest my case. I mean, that makes my point. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Dale.
Look, I was going to change the subject. I don't want to change the subject on you if you're in the middle of a thought. Go ahead.
No. I mean, I agree with Mike. Jefferson said, in America, we don't have a government of the people. We have a government of the people that participate. We need more participation. And that's why I'm running for county commissioner. I'm not a politician. I'm not a bureaucrat. I'm a very educated, concerned, native Josephinite. And that's why I'm running. I love my county, and I want to see a great place for my grandkids to grow up, and maybe even their grandkids if they so choose. I mean, we all came here because we think it's beautiful. For 150 years, we produced natural resources. You know the 93 million acres 93,000 acres they're trying to withdraw from mineral withdrawal south of Kalamiopsis? You know about that. We went to that meeting, right, Dale?
Yeah. Right.
That area has been mined and traveled and prospected for over 150 years, and it's still, as the environmentalists say, pristine. So I think we've done a pretty good job of managing the land. So I think the people that are closest to the land have a lot better feel of how the land should be managed, and that's my core belief. I believe the people closest to the land know better how to manage their land than the people in Washington, D.C., New York, or London.
Well, and listen, you touched on here just a few minutes ago. This is one of Dale and I's pet peeves is participation. There's a very small number of people that show up for meetings on a regular basis. There are a very small number of people that you see on a regular basis participating in anything that has that is political. And the problem is that many people's first exposure to the candidate is the signs they're seeing on the side of the road and the voter's pamphlet. And we really have to change that if we're going to have a sea change of the way things happen here in Josephine County. We're going to have participation. There isn't any question.
Well, picking up on that point, which was exactly what I was talking about changing the subject, from strategic to tactical. When you are looking for a county commissioner and a candidate and what they have to say, you were able in the past to go to a city council meeting and listen to what Lily Morgan had to say. You are currently capable of going to a Board of County Commissioners meeting, and there's 3 commissioners that are paid to be there. We probably won't see them again after this. The only one you ever see is Sandy Casanelli. She's not paid to be there, but she still shows up. When was the last time you saw someone show up that used to be a commissioner that's no longer paid to be there? They're not going to come to those meetings. And you can see Mark Seligman get up occasionally and speak. Every once in a while, you do see some appearance by Tony Webb, mostly at a city council meeting, but occasionally you'll see her in the audience at a county commissioners meeting. You know that you see me. We haven't seen a lot of you at the county commissioners meetings. Tell us what you think is the big issue today with the county commissioners, because you've been following them. What do you think is the biggest issue on a daily basis now that's been happening with the county commissioners, Ron?
I think transparency and ethics and principle.
Yeah.
I think those are the issues. And I think you're very aware of that, Dale. Didn't they violate your First Amendment rights just recently?
They 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 don't have to let anyone speak at all, but if they're going to let some people speak, they really should let everybody speak.
Well, that's what our First Amendment says. We have free speech. So I was shocked to hear that issue was brought up. I think the biggest thing we need to have is transparency and honesty in government. I would never consider doing anything uh, uh, without knowing that it was good for the county. Do you understand? I'm not interested in what's good for Ron Smith. I'm interested in what's good long term for my children, my grandchildren, your children, Mike's children. And if we'll look long term at what we're doing here in the county, I think we'll be a lot better off instead of looking right in front of our face and thinking only about us today.
Well, let's look down through some of the departments and just tell us what you think is, in your opinion, needs to be done. At the moment, there's a big controversy with the health department. What would you say is the biggest challenge at the moment? It's been on our show several times and many meetings of the Board of County Commissioners and even the City Council. What do you think about this current challenge with the health department and some of the issues that have come up around them, sir?
Specify. What are you talking about exactly? I mean,
The
there's
water.
so much of that's forced down by the state, and the county is hamstrung by the state regulations.
Well, this
I mean?
one in particular would be about the water, Ron. Water.
Water, yeah, that's a huge issue.
Well, they were. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead and let him answer. If
Yeah.
Well,
He keeps up with the
I was
issues.
I was involved in the issue when they took out Savage Rapids Dam. Okay, that was in Josephine County. A hard problem because it was private, and the people that owned it, the GPID, didn't want to go to the lawsuit with Water Watch. But look at what happened after that. Out went Go Ray. Now out went Fielder. We had a retired Forest Service guy analyze the soil behind the amount of sediments behind Savage Rapids dams. He said it's going to be very detrimental to the spawning grounds for 20 years afterwards. Okay, nobody took that into consideration. Where was the environmental impact statement for that, for Gold Ray, and for Fielder? Where was the environmental impact statement? If I were a private individual, or even the county, and I had proposed that, I would have had to go through a whole bunch of NEPA process. How did Water Watch get away without even a NEPA process?
Yeah, you can't even walk across the stream wearing rubber boots. I mean, a little bit of exaggeration, and without filing an EIS.
Yeah. I know. So I'm a little. How do I say it? Cards are kind of stacked against us, but
listen,
you're going to need right to principle to push back.
Yeah, Ron, I think what you're dealing with there is you have ideological alliance between Water Watch and the authorities that are supposed to be looking out after environmental cleanliness in the state here and federally. So that's the issue there. You're right. No other private individual could do that, but an organization like Water Watch, they get the wink and the nod.
Tell us what you think of. Sorry, Ron.
I'm sorry.
Tell us what you think about the current controversy that's going on with the legal counsel's office. How would you weigh in on that subject?
The legal counsel office?
Yeah.
Mr. Wally Hicks?
Yes.
What's the controversy you're speaking of? I have a few of mine in mind, but which one are you talking
about? Tell us what you think is the big controversy with Wally Hicks and his office.
Well, I personally, I don't know. I mean, I know that I went to the Board of Commissioners with a private property rights resolution because after that nuisance ordinance, I think everybody in the county wanted some kind of understanding where this current board stood as far as their belief in private property rights. So I went to the board with a resolution that I got from a very good outfit. It was already pre-written. I said, you don't have to use this. I had one resolution for the board and one for planning that I really believe would have helped streamline the process of economic development and give the property owners some protection. I was hoping that at least they'd come out with what the county charter said, what the state constitution says, and what the federal constitution says. But what I got back from the board that they approved, Dale, you filmed the meeting, I know you were there, was for the greater good private property has to be sacrificed, and sometimes for the good of society and for the greater number. And Karl Marx and Lenin are my friends. I have a problem with that.
Yeah, that kind of fits in with the controversy with public works. Yeah.
I don't really remember them talking about Lenin and Marx in that, but I get the gist.
No. What's common good? Tell me what it is.
Yes, no, I know what that's
common
about.
Common good is whatever you want. The leadership says it is.
Right.
What is for the greater good of society?
Yeah, and
what they shouted in Russia when they took that country? They said, "The greater good for the greater number, hee-rah!"
Yes, and we all know how that went.
I think we have a constitution we're supposed to live to.
But Dale, what is it that you were referring to, if you don't mind me asking, because I don't even know what you're talking about when it comes to the controversy about.
Oh, sure you do. Because we talked about that so much. Wally Hicks has really changed sides from where he used to be, and now he's actually defending the commissioners and giving them advice that they don't have to follow state law.
They don't have to follow state law?
No.
So Dale, are you referring to the situation where it was when they were in the meeting talking to County Fire, and they were talking specifically about the setting of fees, and you asked Wally about it after the fact, and Wally said that never happened.
Yeah, well, you take your choice. There was that never happened. There was that one. There was a meeting where they were holding the meeting without without telling the public about it, and
call it a workshop.
It was at the admin workshop, and Wally Hicks said, "No, that's okay to go ahead and do that."
That's right. Yes.
There's a variety of subjects where it's absolutely, totally, completely against the law. Well, the thing that we turned him in for, I was one of the people who turned him in. There's two of us, myself and Sandy Casanelli, and Wally Hicks was sitting right there during their meetings that they've been hit up against by the state. Wally Hicks was in the room, and part of their defense was, well, Wally was here, so we've got a bit of a problem with Wally Hicks not following the law, and that's and you know that, Mike, because you've been involved in that. I don't want to let Ron get away though before he's got a chance to talk a little bit about his feeling about, and you're going to find this puts him, in my opinion, solidly on one side of the issue. I happen to be over there too, and other people like Tony Webb, and probably like Lily Morgan, and definitely like all three of the commissioners on the other side of this. And that
I know where you're going here.
You say it, Mike.
Ron, when it comes to the issue of launching another law enforcement levy on the people of Josephine County, are you on board with that? Tell us all about your levy plan, Ron.
I voted no on all of them. Let's cut some trees.
Okay.
Let's manage the forest. We don't need to tax the people. Every time the government taxes people, they waste the money. What's the point? You know, the feds took in a record amount of the tax money. Did our national debt go down? Heck no. So, I mean, how does taxing the people help? But all it does is hurt. Darn it. We have 67% of our land that's going to waste.
The argument though that you would get from the sheriff or the police chief or SOS or cuffs is that the only money that is available to law enforcement is that which they get through taxation, and that there's a law enforcement emergency.
Last time I checked, the police don't stop crime; they investigate crime. And who is it that has been turning down these levies? It's not been the city. It's been the rural people in the county. They don't seem to be that concerned about it. I'm a strong supporter of our criminal justice system. I think there's a lot that needs to be done in that area. But I don't think taxing the people is the answer. I really believe. Remember, guys, that in 1980, when we were actually harvesting and managing our forests, we didn't even have a property tax. It was before your time, but we didn't even have a property tax because the land produced everything we needed to support county government. So, no, I'm not for taxes. I'm not for a tax levy. But I strongly believe in the criminal justice system. And I think they answered the only solution big enough to pull Josephine County out of its economic doldrums, the only way to move forward and have a solid, bright, blossoming future for your kids and my kids, my grandkids, is to go back and manage that land for the health of the forest and the health of the community. There's no solution big enough other than that.
Ron, we're going to give you a chance to come in and do a summation at the very end, but for right now, we're going to talk about you behind your back.
Uh-oh.
So don't listen, please. Mike?
I can't hardly hear you anyway, so it works for me.
Okay, all right. Mike, so obviously one of the reasons I wanted to talk to Ron about the international banking system is because he's got some very strong opinions about that. He kind of skipped over that. That is not something that a county commissioner is involved, but I think it does go a long way toward talking about his view of the world and what control that we have over it if you think that the international banks are controlling us, even here locally, through some nefarious means and etc. And I know he has very strong feelings about this. He decided not to talk about that, which is fine because he's quite right. It's not under the purview of a county commissioner. The other thing that I found is that perhaps he needs to attend more county commissioners meetings so that he won't end up like Colleen Roberts. Colleen Roberts seems like a wonderful person, but after she got in, she says it's going to take her 6 to 9 months to get up to speed. And obviously, if we vote for Ron over Cheryl Walker, it's a great improvement in my opinion.
Yes.
We don't want someone that has to take 6 to 9 months to get up to speed. Any thoughts that you have about this, Mike?
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose that, anybody who's running for commissioner ought to be, they ought to understand this document, for one. That's the charter.
Absolutely.
And I think, listen, if you had this be your guiding document throughout your services as a county commissioner, you'd be way ahead of the people that are occupying that space right now, because I don't think they could tell you what's in this document.
Well, they certainly don't know anything about what it says about what you're supposed to be paid. $30,000 a year is quite specific.
Yes. So,
okay.
I actually read that charter more than once, guys, actually.
Good. We did a series of shows about it,
I've actually read the Constitution, too, believe it or not, and the bills.
That's real good. So, Mike and I have talked a little about you behind your back. Why don't you sum it up, Ron? You just say anything that you feel like saying, and we'll just sit here and try to keep quiet.
Okay. You've been pretty quiet anyway because my headset's kind of low. I'm running for county commissioner because I'm concerned about where we're going. I've been real disappointed with the current board of commissioners in their lack of transparency and lack of concern for private property rights. I really believe the foundation for our liberty and our freedom hinges on our property rights. Not only our property rights for our private property, but for that land that we're charged and trust in that it's surrounded by a line on the map that says Josephine County and has been since 1856. It's our responsibility to manage that land. Yes, people come from the outside and push on us, but we need to stand up and act like a county. We were here way before anybody else. So let's take the bull by the horns. Let's have the courage and the strength to at least stand up and make them obey their laws. If we will go back to manage the forest for its health and for the health of the watersheds, for the health of the habitat, and when there is a catastrophic fire, because there will be, there's going to be forest fires out there. That's the history of a lightning alley that we live in. Let's get out there and let's make sure we harvest the trees while they have value. Then we won't be going to the people and asking to tax. So anyway, yeah, my family's been here for over 100 years. I'm not going anywhere. I've been to a lot of county commissioner meetings, Dale. I've actually fought for property rights. I actually have done a lot of things in this county before you were here. And I'm glad you're here, and I really appreciate what you and Mike do because it's important. But I'm not a Johnny-come-lately, and this is not my first rodeo, okay? And so I'll tell you, I believe I'd be the best choice for county commissioner first and foremost because I understand land use, and I understand Josephine County probably better than most. And I understand the forces that are pushing on us, not only from within, for without. Now, I can't say that about everybody running for commissioner. I think we have a lot of naive people that are standing up there thinking that they're going to be Johnny One Note and they're going to be successful here in helping Josephine County prosper and bloom. But I think the time has come to stand up and act like we're a county. Time to stand up and defend the Constitution, defend our charter, and defend our way of life.
Did you notice that little reference to Johnny One Note standing? Oh yeah, that's one of the.
I wonder. I don't know who he's talking about.
Who could he be possibly?
I have no idea who that is either.
No idea, right? Just a little program note about this show, and we're almost done. And that is the reason that we needed to have Ron Smith on, and the reason we needed to have Lily Morgan on, is because many people will say, "Gee, what will this person do for the county?" We've got a pretty good idea what some of the other candidates will do for the county because we hear a lot from them. But there used to be big question marks hovering over the head of a couple of the candidates. There's going to be newer candidates that come in, but I am not one of those people with the big question mark hovering over my head. You already know about that. Now Ron is not, and now Lily is not, and there are going to be some others that come in that none of us have ever heard of, and they don't come to any of the meetings. And of course, we'll ask them, what do you know about what's happening in county government, so that they won't take 6 or 9 months to get up to speed about what's happening today. And so I'm glad that Ron gave us the time. He was gracious to share this time with us. Mike, do you have any other little things that you want to add in here? Oh, be sure to tell him, Mike, what's going to happen tomorrow. But any other thing that you want to add, sir?
No, not right off the bat. I think that it was good to have Ron on. Like you say, we need to know who these people are. Your first exposure cannot be their name on a ballot.
Right.
That's, and I think there's kind of a national movement to go, hey, we really need to take a look at this because of the direction everything is going. Let's do an in-depth examination of the candidates that are going to run, so that our choice can be an educated one.
This is not an opportunity for, let's say, Keith Eck or for Cheryl Walker to say, well, nobody knows who I am. Oh, give me a break, right? You got to give me equal time. No, we don't. Okay, it's not that we're not interested in having you informed, but out of like 1,500 plus videos, a third of them are about Keith Eck, and a third of them are about Cheryl Walker. Go ahead, Mike.
I think it would be fantastic to have Keith Heck or Cheryl Walker on this program. I mean, the problem is that we would have to choose which thing in the long list of things to discuss, because you'd have to make it a special 2-hour program or something.
All we need to do is a split screen, and there would be Keith Eck over on this side speaking on videotape, and you could have Keith Eck live on our show, and he could just debate with himself.
Yes, right. Exactly.
Oh, Dale, you're so clever. Sometimes I just love your sense of humor. Here, guys, listen, I've had a lot of meetings in the county. Where have you been? I've held a lot of meetings here in this county. Where have you been? You really want to know about me? Why don't you come to some of my meetings that I've had?
Send us an invitation, for crying out loud.
I've invited Dale before.
Ah.
Okay, now listen,
There
I'm getting
you go,
ready to have
Dale. Where have
another
you been,
meeting,
Dale?
December 8th at the Fruitdale Grange, guys.
Even I'm not aware of that, but okay. I mean, I know that there was a meeting that happened recently with a group of veterans where you couldn't attend because you had, a last-minute emergency that came up with the family and everything, and we're not going to concentrate on that.
Well, do you remember when Wally Hicks and Carl Wilson and Gil Gilbertson and one other candidate came to the Fruitdale Grange when we talked about property rights?
I don't know.
That was a meeting that I put together, guys.
Oh,
it was in the Courier front page, the Discourager. And I actually have held a lot of meetings. You know that we had a meeting in the Applegate School? Were you aware of that? Concerning the Sister Crest National Monument? You know how many people we put in that meeting?
No.
300.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Because
well, I never even heard about it.
1,700 properties that were inside the boundary of that proposed monument, and we thought they had a right to know what was coming down.
Some people just don't think that we're media, Ron.
Yeah. Hey, Ron.
you guys are the best media around. I really appreciate what you do. I mean, here you're not controlled by anybody, and that's important because so much of our media today is controlled and edited, and it's just a propaganda machine. So what you do is a great service to the county.
That's for sure.
We're not even controlled. We're not even controlled by ourselves, Ron.
That's right.
So, Ron, you mentioned December 8th at the Fruitdale Grange.
Yeah, and December 10th at the county building in Cave Junction.
Okay.
7 to 9, both meetings.
Would you send us an invitation this time, please?
I will.
Okay,
that'll
be great.
I invited you before, Dale.
Okay, and now, so...
hang on just a second. Because I wasn't done, and then you guys are, talking over me here. On December 8th, the one at the Fruitdale Grange, what is that?
That's about a healthy forest, healthy communities. I have a guest speaker coming down from Portland to talk about how we can get more economy. It's about economic development.
And the one on December 10th, the same thing at the county building?
Same thing, but it's in the Illinois Valley, my hometown.
Sure.
Okay. Now, tomorrow night, we're going to, I mentioned to you, we're going to do this on Sundays and on Wednesdays. Sunday got a much better response than I had anticipated. I thought it'd be great if we got like 5 different people saying that they were interested in what we were talking about, and they could click on the little buttons at the bottom and vote. We're getting you used to voting on things, more participation, step-by-step approach to that. And we're going to have one tomorrow night, and tomorrow night's going to be a pretty interesting subject. We think that you're going to watch this and you're going to say, what? Or you might say, what? And so you get a chance of which kind of those what buttons you want to press on the bottom. It might be either what, or it might be what. Okay, so you've got the choice to vote for yourself. We don't capture your information. We can't, and we're not going to identify you. We can't, but we're going to send out emails on your behalf saying, I watched one of these shows and I didn't like what I saw, and I'd like you to clean up your act. There's an awful lot of that. So you've got already till the middle of tomorrow to vote on the one that happened on Sunday. You can watch the Sunday show anytime you want to, but if you want to live vote on it, you've got till tomorrow. And then tomorrow evening when we do the next one, and these are going to come up twice a week. So what that also does is encourage you to take a stand and say what it is with no fear of retaliation, not even from Mike, certainly not from Keith Heck. Nobody's going to be able to get all over your case because they're not going to know who you are. We don't know who you are. Hey, we'd like to know who you are. You can send an email or make a phone call anytime you want to, except the commissioners are not here all week. And so, you can rail at the system if you wish. There's nobody there to listen. And if you go to a city council meeting, even though they're all sitting there, there's nobody there to listen anyway.
Lights are on, but nobody's home.
That's exactly right. Okay, and Mike has got up in front of him an email address where you can send us an email, and people are doing that.
Yes, you can send us an email at badcounty@cpros.com. Tell us what you think about what's going on in the program. Tell us what you think about, what color shirt I'm wearing, etc.
Right, and we do read all of them, and if you say, please respond, we'll respond. Normally we just internalize it. It's now part of who we are.
Until we become a volcano and explode.
That's right. So you'll have a chance to explode tomorrow night. Oh, geez. The NSA listening to this show, now what are they going to think we're talking about? Yeah. We'll straighten it all out tomorrow. Good night, everybody.
I hope I don't explode between now and then, guys. I really do.
We'll watch you, to be sure.